Hello, welcome to the Null Electronics podcast. I'm back, baby. It's so good to have you here with me again. Wow, it's been a while, hasn't it? And I thought that the best way to start this podcast off might be by talking about why it's been a while. Before I get into that, though, I don't owe anybody an explanation. I run my own life. And whilst it was nice to be doing a podcast once a week and interviewing some people weekly and getting what the industry standard, hitting the industry standard of one podcast a week on the same day-ish every week, I just decided that, that's enough of that for now. I'm not really enjoying it enough, so I'm going to take a break. So that's what I did. Not that that's of any concern to you, but what else am I going to fill this podcast with if I don't talk about that? So that's where I've been. That's what I've been doing. I also wanted to play some Disco Elysium. Now, Disco Elysium, if you're not aware, is an RPG game. It's a critically acclaimed RPG computer game. And I started playing it a couple of years ago and was enjoying it, and I thought, I really want to get into this, and I didn't, because once again I ran out of time. But it recently was added to Game Pass on Xbox, and I thought, oh fuck, all right, I did want to see that through, so I'll get back to it. And I started playing it. Now, what is an RPG game? A role-playing game. It's a genre of game that I've never really clicked with. I've always found it hard to sort of play one of these games where you're ostensibly supposed to take on the role of a character that you want to play and make decisions from that character's perspective. You know, really imagine yourself as some kind of other person or being, and then make the decisions based on what you think that other person would do. So, you know, it's a chance to escape your regular brain and say, I'm going to be the kind of guy who makes impulsive decisions and does things at the tip of a hat. Is that a phrase? I think it is. At the tip of a hat? Anyway, I can never really do that. I think the only way I know how to play these kind of games where you're confronted with multiple choice questions and you answer them according to your character is to just answer them as if I were actually in the game. And that's frustrating because, of course, these games don't offer enough nuance to actually answer questions in fake conversations with the barkeeper or the woman at the secondhand bookstore with what you'd actually want to say to them. And it always feels like you're kind of stuck on a single train track regardless of what you say. And I find that very frustrating. So I don't know if I'm enjoying the game. I thought I was the first time I played it. This time around, I'm not so sure. So I've been doing that. And I've had to make space in my life to be able to do that because it's a very, very busy life. Another reason that I haven't released any podcasts in a while, other than just having more important things to do with my life, is I've got a few musicians and people that I've wanted to speak with on this podcast, and they've been incredibly cagey, very hard to lock down. One guy in particular, I hear from sporadically every couple of weeks, and he's like, I found my microphone, but it turns out I don't have a mic cable. I'm like, all right, cool, no worries, no stress, bro. Just come back to me when you can, and I'd love to talk to you. I've been listening to your record a lot, and I think it'd be a good conversation. And then you don't hear from him for 2 weeks. I emailed him again today, so we'll see if he comes back to me. It'd be good to get him on the podcast. I can't tell you who it is. That would be illegal. There's another very, very high-profile artist that it looked very, very promising that I would be speaking to him on my podcast around about now as well. But as is always the case in the music industry, I'm not hearing back from his publicist at the moment. And that could be for any number of reasons. Most likely that getting on a podcast that has about 50 listeners is not high on their priority list. Now, I don't quite understand why that would be. But hey, there you have it. So that's what I have been doing, and just, in between like this sort of thing of like waiting for the artists that I've reached out to come back to me and lock something in, I've also not been putting a whole heap of pressure on myself to fulfill any arbitrary commitments around this, because why would I put that pressure on myself? This making content and making podcasts thing is for my enjoyment primarily, and I didn't really, the idea of sort of stressing out and trying to fill in a gap or make a podcast off the back of nothing, or to interview someone I'm not interested in talking to, really just, I'm not going to do that to myself. Why would I? I get enough of that in my professional life doing stuff that I don't want to do, so why would I take the thing that's fun, or that's supposed to be a creative outlet, and make it not fun? Food for thought, hey? So that's my explanation of where I've been on the podcasting front. If you do listen to these podcasts and you find them enjoyable, that's awesome, and do let me know. There will be more. I know it's been a bit of a gap. There might be a huge gap between this one and the next one. Maybe that that industry heavyweight that I had on the line a couple of months ago will finally come through. Maybe I'll wake up to an email from his publicist tomorrow and he'll say, "All right, Hayden, let's tee it up." So you might get 2 podcasts in 1 week if that happens. Highly unlikely. So I think I've gone deep enough and talked enough about where I've been and why I haven't been podcasting. So I wanted to move on to some other things. About a week or 2 ago, a local Australian band by the name of Radio Free Alice went on our national broadcaster, ABC. We have a youth radio station here in Australia called Triple J, and I guess it's sort of like it's very influential. I mean, some would argue that it's losing that influence as the music industry and music discovery sort of is funneled to more online spaces, such as your TikToks, social media, and streaming platforms, but it still does hold a fair bit of sway in subjecting, that's not the right word, subjecting the people, the masses, to certain music, exposing, that's the word I'm looking for, exposing especially young people in Australia to new music or music in general. And like if you get good support from the radio station in that they play your music a fair bit, it's reasonable to say that you'd then be propped up within this country to make a little bit of money, or at least sustain yourself touring your music around the country. It sort of guarantees, it doesn't guarantee, but it sort of gives you a high chance of finding a larger audience throughout the country. That's Triple J. It's a publicly funded radio station, and it broadcasts across the nation. They do this thing on their radio station called Like a Version. It's a very funny play on words, like the song Like a Virgin, but like a version, because it's the conceit of this radio segment is that a band comes in and they do a cover of a popular song, a version, if you would, of a popular song. And we had like not a big band, but like a band that I think for the last couple of years has been building a pretty notable sort of grassroots following out of Melbourne. The band is called Radio Free Alice, and me personally, I kind of like some of what they've done. That they've come across my ears a few times over the last couple of years, and I quite like a bit of what they're doing, because I like the reference points that they're playing with. Primarily the post-punk references they're playing with. Certainly New Order, or early New Order, and Joy Division are one of the influences that are quite clear there. What I don't particularly like in their sound is some of the early 2000s indie references, like your Block Party and your Arctic Monkeys. I don't particularly like those bands, and I never really did get into those records. And so that's the other half of their sound, I would say, which is not my cup of tea. I saw them at Meredith last year, towards the end of last year, and yeah, I mean, they're good. they're not amazing. I mean, it's all subjective, isn't it? They're fine. They're not bad. They're not a bad band. Kind of not. Something about their music annoys me, and I can pinpoint it. It's what I said before. It's the Block Party and the Arctic Monkeys influence that kind of like, meh, not that into. Anyway, they put their foot in their mouth. Can an entire band put their foot in their mouth? Maybe they all collectively put one foot in their individual mouths each at the same time. I don't know. They went on the national broadcaster Triple J, and they were on this Like a Version program segment, and they were covering a song. And part of the course here is when you cover the song, maybe Triple J interviews you and say, why'd you pick this song? And, well, you know, what are your thoughts on it? And sadly, the lead singer from this band just came across incredibly pretentious and pompous. The song that they decided to cover was Usher's DJ Got Us Falling in Love. I believe it's a Max Martin produced / written song. You probably know it. But the band was sort of, you know, doing that sort of that thing you do. It's always like when you want to downplay your guilty pleasure, where they said, this is actually a really shit song, but we thought it'd be a fun challenge to make it not a shit song. And I think the thing that people most took issue with, me included, it was just a bit like sort of watching David Brent dig his own hole. They said, look, this song fucking sucks, but when we do it, this song actually rocks. So check this out. We made it better. They didn't make it better. It sounds like, you know, they did it in their style, which I guess is kind of an interesting idea, because their music does not sound anything like hyper-produced Max Martin pop. You know, if you approach this conversation from a different perspective, maybe it would have gone down a little better, but they did not. They just kind of shat all over the song. Me being the reactive sort of click-hungry motherfucker I am, I made a little video about it on my social platforms, and I felt a bit guilty about it afterwards, because it was a bit mean, but I was glad in my commentary about the conceit of my video was that I essentially just talked about the fact, as I just have, that they went on Triple J and did this, and then I talked about the fact that the public was very pissed off at them, and they got absolutely roasted in the comments, and there were lots of think pieces and people jumping on social media, digging into them for saying, how dare you besmirch Usher's name. This is a classic example of a white savior complex coming in and taking black music and whiteifying it and claiming that you made it better. Now, I don't know that argument holds much water. If you want to view it through that lens, that's fine. I don't know that there is an implied or subconscious racial element to this. I think really it sounds to me like the classic, you know, I don't like pop music. Pop music's for losers. I like underground music argument. And I think that anyone that's jumping to other conclusions and trying to tease out some kind of white supremacist angle or inherent sort of, you know, the tendrils of white supremacy are so deeply seated in all of us, and look at these fucking white pompous pricks. Anyway, I think that might be reading into it a little too much. Maybe I'm wrong. Certainly don't care whether I'm wrong or right, honestly. I got more important things to do, as I mentioned at the start of this podcast, than worry about that. But yeah, look, they got shat all over, and I contributed in that I made a video about them and sort of took the piss out of them. And then the punchline of my whole joke was I essentially said what they said about Usher, but about their music. And then I had an AI model generate a Usher-fied version of one of their songs, and it was very funny. So check that video out if you haven't seen it. Did you see this clip?
And this song is sort of like the ugliest duckling of like bad songs.
That's an Australian post-punk band called Radio Free Alice, and they are copping a heap of shit at the moment due to 3 things. 1, claiming that the Usher club/R&B crossover hit DJ's Got Us Falling in Love is a piece of trash.
We've always felt that good songs don't need good covers. It's like bad songs that need good covers.
2. Having a lead singer with an unfortunately pompous and pretentious affect to his speaking voice.
There are certain lines in the song that have a meaning in the original context, but in our version, the meaning feels different.
And 3. Getting up on Triple J and pronouncing that their Arctic Monkeys meets Joy Division fusion is the only lens through which a song like DJ's Got Us Falling in Love Again could possibly sound good.
Covering it in the way that we did made me realize, like, that's actually kind of like a beautiful, sad line.
But honestly, I think Radio Free Alice are being treated unfairly off the back of this interview, and I wanted to raise my voice in their defense. It's not their fault, it's just that, well, they need a little help. Take their most popular song, Look What You've Done. It just needs a little work, and I'm a man of action, so I'm more than happy to roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty. See, something that's unique about me is that I've personally always felt that good songs don't need good covers. It's bad songs that need good covers, and this song,
Katie's in the bedroom screaming at the enemy,
is sort of like, well, I don't know, I'm sort of reaching for the right phrase here. The ugliest duckling of bad songs, I think. And so I thought it would be a fun challenge to see if I could turn it into a swan.
Katie's in the bedroom screaming at the enemy. I'm in the bathroom praying to obliterate the man on the small screen, fangs on some cape. I wonder what my boy would say when he hears Kate. I love their bones, derivative moans. I don't know how we're doing this again, with the phone's tapped anyway. All I hear my Katie say now.
So you're welcome, boys. One thing I do like about having this podcast is that when I make a video, especially one like that, which is, just a stupid, I didn't think about it much. It was just a silly joke that I wanted to make at someone's expense. Yes. A little bit mean. Yes. I can then come on the podcast and sort of tease out what I actually think about it in detail. And so, yeah, I feel a little bit mean for having done that to them. I hope that they can take it. I'm sure that they can. And I can also come onto this podcast and just sort of say that my intent was probably not the same intent that a lot of other people took to social media with, which was to pile on. Oh, maybe it was. I don't know. That's interesting. Let me take another 5 weeks to think about this. Did I do it because it made me feel good to be mean to someone and therefore make myself feel better than? Did I do it purely to get more eyeballs on my social media accounts, which truthfully is something that I kind of want to do a bit, because you get these little glimpses of hope every now and then that building a following on TikTok is going to get me out of some of the more mundane portions of my life. So maybe there was a little bit of that. Do I like attention and joking in front of people? Yes, absolutely. So that's part of it as well. I did it because I wanted to have people look at me and say, oh, that guy's funny. A mission accomplished. Anyway, just maybe I need to look into that a little bit more. Point is, Radio Free Alice, I hope they bounce back. No, wait, there's one other thing. There's one other facet of this interesting moment in the culture. Some people did some digging and discovered that I think the lead singer, this is where, again, I don't have a lot of time to look into this, but I believe the lead singer of this band comes from money. Whatever that means. I don't know. People did some gross things and tracked down who his parents are and found that he, I don't know, comes from a wealthy family. And I don't know, do we need to be doing that? I get angry, right, about the idea that people own multiple homes. One is enough. I don't own one. I'd like one. That'd be cool. Can we just leave a little for everyone else? And I guess I get angry when I think about how much having money can push you forward in a career in the arts, an industry that is notoriously very hard to make money in. And, you know, I feel, it's a bit unfair. Wow, woe is me. I wish I had more money, and maybe then things would be different with regard to my career in the arts. But it's sort of not really... I don't feel like it's fair to bring that argument in to this conversation. They're not on Triple J covering Usher because they have money. Oh, maybe they are. Maybe the money propelled them to that point. I don't know. Fuck. Wow, really haven't formulated a proper opinion on here. I guess it's very easy to look at a piece of paper and see that a guy has some rich parents and to make your own conclusions off that. But realistically, we don't know anything about this man or his family. So I guess I'll summarize this segment of my podcast by saying, Radio Free Alice, or one of you guys from that band, come on my podcast. That'd be fun. Let's talk on my podcast. I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to ping them on my Instagram and see if they will come on. I'm sure they will not reply. Hey, let's take a little break and talk about an album that came out recently. The new Underscores album is a very fun, good, enjoyable listen. The production on the Underscores album, it's called You, is phenomenal. Really, really interesting. Well, it's just a bit sort of like, as someone who produces electronic music, that's me. When I listen to this, I find it incredibly overwhelming and sort of mind-boggling that this is what people can do with like a fucking laptop these days. It's so involved, it's so intricate, it's just really clever. I'm really impressed by this record. The vocal melodies that are employed across this record are incredibly intelligent and clever and catchy and poppy and just symmetrical in really interesting ways. The production's intricate and interesting. You've got, you know, like a minor, without going ham on this as a phrase, there's a hyper-pop sort of element that has sort of come strained through the last 10 years of electronic music or electronic pop music that sort of, you know, it's cool to hear artists that, you know, obviously at one point were very influenced by this genre of music, but to hear the way that it gets distilled into music now, to the point where I don't think you call this hyperpop, you just call it kind of, you know, interesting electronic music, bedroom producer music. You can hear that in there, but definitely give this album a listen. It's a really nice, tight 33-minute record. My highlights are Hollywood Forever, which has some very... I like the way that Underscores uses these old late 90s, early 1000s plucky faux guitar synthesizers across some of the works, and that is very notable on Hollywood Forever. Let's have a quick listen. And I think the standout track on first few listens is definitely The Peace. It's just a really affecting and effective piece of electronic music. I love the vocal melodies on this one. It's just, yeah, it really hits me of just like, wow, how did you do that? How did you think of that? You must have been so high to come up with this shit. Love the new Underscores album. Here's a little bit of The Piece, which is probably my favorite cut off the record.
Yeah, I'm speaking unless I'm spoken to. I'm smoking unless you're smoking too. Yeah, I just wanna keep the peace with you. Yeah. Swan number 2 is at Coachella. Made an offer to everyone in the spring event. You've been clean for months.
Wowie zowie. Check that record out. I think that there are moments on the record that do remind me of Jane Remover, especially some of the more chaotic stuff that Jane Remover has done over the years. Another artist that when I listen to what she does, I'm just kind of like, how did you do that? And then, you know, I've listened to interviews with Jane Remover where they talk about how sort of prolific and how quickly she writes songs, and then you listen to these songs that she's written, you're like, it's so detailed and there's so much minutia in here. What do you mean you wrote it in 30 minutes? Anyway, we'll move on from that. The second topic that I wanted to talk to you about on this podcast is another little music industry blow up thing that happened. The Chaotic Good. Let's talk about Chaotic Good. What is Chaotic Good? Chaotic Good are a music marketing company out of the States that got a lot of light shone on them in the past week or so, last few weeks, because somebody wrote an article about them. I believe there was a musician, I forget her name, there was a musician, she wrote a Substack article about a Billboard podcast. Billboard have their own podcast, and on this podcast, it's an industry podcast, right? A music industry podcast. And on the podcast, they invited the two co-founders of a company called Chaotic Good on to talk about how do they market music in this new TikTok attention economy. Fake TikTok fans. Who cares? Last week, a woman by the name of Eliza McLam wrote an enjoyable piece on her Substack titled Fake Fans, in which she detailed her surprise and disappointment,
well, imagine my shock,
at the discovery that people who work on the business side of the music industry routinely refer to the propaganda handbook when trying to market their products, music, to an audience of brainwashable losers. You. It is a good piece and it's well worth a read, and there's nothing wrong with what Eliza has said here, but I've been kind of surprised by some of the reaction to the article, which hones in specifically on the music marketing firm Chaotic Good, a firm that record labels can hire to manufacture viral moments for their musical artists. How do they do this? Well, they essentially buy a fuck ton of iPhones and create a fuck ton of TikTok accounts and post a bunch of shit simultaneously on those accounts, all of which is soundtracked by the song or the artist who is paying for said mass exposure, or, as Chaotic Good put it, trend simulation.
We use the term trend simulation, which I think is useful. Basically what we're doing, like every day, is sometimes artists get lucky, they post a song and it goes viral. And so what we're doing is going and looking and studying what actually happened. Like, you know, what were the inflection points? Who are the key people that picked it up? Like, who are important people in certain genres? Like, what are the niches? Why did this happen? And so then when we have a song that isn't naturally going viral, we apply that to it. And so we say we're kind of simulating a trend.
They also have a swathe of hired contractors, all beautifully categorized granularly into different market segments, who will post content on the firm's behalf for a fee, all in the service of getting a band or a song in front of their target audience. The company also helps control the narrative around the band or song by filling the comment section with exactly the kind of messaging that was provided in the brief from the record label. You know, stuff like this.
The second the SNL drops at midnight, you should post 100 times saying that was the best performance of the year. The question is, how do you do that at scale? And so it takes a lot of work and infrastructure, but like, I think controlling the narrative is really, really important.
But are we surprised? I mean, I'm not. I remember the last time this kind of garbage infiltrated my feed with McGee's debut album campaign, and it was obvious what was going on. No matter how much I didn't care about him, I kept getting videos like this. Cool ad, bro. Social media is, and has been for a long time, the most potent propaganda weapon human civilization has ever conceived. Did you really think that slimy music industry fucks weren't going to be using it for exactly that purpose? That's how this works. That's how this has always worked. Except in the 90s, we were stupid enough to pay $15 at the newsagent so we could take the propaganda home and read over it. Another thing, haven't they been teaching kids in school that, remember, not everything you see on social media is real for almost like 2 decades? Who missed the memo? Maybe they should be teaching kids that literally nothing you see on social media is real. I don't know. So look, I think my point, as always, is who cares? I know I'm not expecting too much of people to realise that the whole business of getting music out in front of people is and always has been an exercise of tiptoeing along the spectrum of gentle persuasion to an outright psyop. And even though I'm not particularly a huge fan of Geese or Cameron Winter or McGee, the propaganda campaigns run by Chaotic Good wouldn't have been successful as they have been if there wasn't something genuinely exciting and imagination capturing about their works. If you find this whole thing shocking, here's my advice, which, as I've just outlined, is worth shit all, seeing as it is being conveyed to you via the very machines and algorithms that shouldn't be trusted or believed. Go and read Eliza's piece, and then go and listen to the podcast that she's responding to. Then go and read this unhinged article by Tony Price, which is a far better take on the situation than mine. And next time you open social media, try to keep in mind that you are in control of your brain, and what you're looking at isn't real. It's all a psyop. Actually, that's just my advice for life. Nothing you see is real, and it is all just a psyop. So just ignore it all and try and enjoy the limited time you have on this planet. It's so fucked up here. Isn't that kind of sick? And the two guys sit there and they answer questions about essentially their business model, which is essentially running a whole heap of fake, for lack of a better term, TikTok accounts. They're not really fake. This is not bots, right? This is not, we programmed a bunch of bots to post automatically on social media to try and get more attention about our artists. What they actually are is genuine. They're fake accounts that are manned by human beings, maybe the same human being, that makes curated-ish content that would support their artists. So an example might be, you've got a band, they're releasing a single, the single comes out, and then Chaotic Good employ their, 300 TikTok accounts to all post a different kind of content about that song, whether it's, one of these videos of flowers with some stupid caption about, wow, I can't believe how much I miss him, written over the top of it. And of course, soundtracking that fantastic piece of content is a song by the band that they're trying to break. And then to take things to the next level, they will also have all of these accounts intermingle with each other in that, if the official band account posts a snippet of the song, Chaotic Good will ensure that all of these other accounts press the like button at the exact same time to sort of juice the algorithm or coax the algorithm into thinking that it's important. And they talk about controlling the narrative when a band has their performance on SNL. They make sure that they're all hands on deck and they get all of their live TikTok accounts to go and create not just positive comments about that performance on the official SNL video when it gets posted, but narrative, quote unquote, narrative shaping comments. So if sort of the goal or one of the strategic goals of that band is to align with, I don't know, this is a bad example. Let's say that the band is trying to align themselves with Oasis at the moment, because that's the narrative that the record label and the band have sort of put together for themselves. Like, we really want to align our sound with Oasis. We've seen that people who like Oasis are sort of drifting towards us on Spotify at the moment. So we want to double down on that. Let's control the narrative and get a bunch of bots to post on our SNL video when it goes live saying, wow, this reminds me of when Oasis first were on SNL back in 1994. Now, I don't even know that Oasis have ever performed on SNL, but you get the point. It's about driving a narrative and then having the general public sort of see these kind of comments on the video and start to wonder, or piece that together in their own mind, and then deliver that narrative the next time they hang out with their friends and say, geez, did you see the new cool band on SNL last night? Don't they remind you of Oasis? It just struck me as an Oasis-y kind of performance. And so on goes the marketing from there. That's what Chaotic Good do. A lot of people became quite perturbed finding this out. Some people using the term psyop to refer to, is essentially using brainwashing tactics to try and market music to the masses. So cheating using bot accounts to market their music. How do I feel about this? Well, I'm glad you asked. I don't know. I guess it is kind of gross, but all marketing is gross in my mind, which is a hard thing for me to sort of talk about because I kind of love marketing at the same time. I think that the psychology of it all and how it works and sort of observing it has always, even since I was a kid and just being subjected to TV commercials all the time and sort of, I find it so, for lack of a better term, I find it fun to think about and ponder upon and watch play out. I remember a couple of years ago in one of my bands, as an experiment and sort of as satire, we released a song and I'd take segments of that song when it was released and I'd paste it over already viral videos. So something as simple as that. I remember there was this viral moment for a local band here called Royal Otis. They did a cover of Murder on the Dance Floor. Actually, this all ties back into Triple J's Like a Version because they went on live Like a Version. And they covered Murder on the Dance Floor, which is a classic Sophie Ellis-Bextor song, which had another viral moment because it soundtracked a scene in the film Saltburn, where the main protagonist in that film runs through a house naked, dancing to Murder on the Dance Floor. And so that was having a viral moment, and then Royal Otis struck whilst the iron was hot, and they went on Triple J's Like a Version, and they covered the very same song. And then what felt like a chaotic good-esque marketing campaign flooded the internet. And every 3 seconds, I'm seeing some fucking video of some person dancing in their living room to this cover of Murder on the Dance Floor by Royal Otis. And, you know, it's not content that I want to see, but I do watch it out of this sort of strange curiosity. I was like, what am I watching here? You know, you see a attractive-looking woman dancing in her kitchen with the caption, "Does anybody else's brain tickle when he sings Murder on the Dance Floor?" Just the absolute bottom of the barrel cringe content. Anyway, I was in a band and sort of as satire, I went through and scraped a bunch of those kind of videos off the internet. One of them in particular being this woman. I think she had a viral moment where she posted a video of her dancing to the Murder on the Dance Floor thing. And I just put our song over the top of it and it resonated. You know, like I saw, we saw at live shows, people responded to that song way better, even though we were stealing content from other people and just putting our own song over the top of it. I got a video of Anthony Fantano dancing, and just overdubbed with our song and put a new caption over it saying, "How come nobody told me about this sick Australian band? They are absolutely killing it right now." And on and on and on, and did that a few times. And it was really interesting to see that it kind of worked on a very small level, right? In our local community here, seeing people respond to that segment of that song by us. It always gets sung to us loudest when we play shows at that precise part of audio that I capped. Now, there is an argument here that the actual music behind these quote-unquote viral campaigns needs to be actually good, objectively good, or at least good in some way. And the case study for this across a lot of the discourse around this particular sort of moment of spotlight being shone on chaotic goods marketing angle is the band Geese, who have had a pretty meteoric sort of rise to much more renown over the last year. You know, that's a band that's been around for quite a while and have always been doing, you know, something I think quite interesting, or at least something unique in the alternative rock space, but they really blew up over the last year or so with their most recent record, and it comes to light that they were in fact a client of Chaotic Good, and then the discourse sort of went down this path of, well, do you actually like Geese? Are Geese actually a good band, or have you just been tricked into liking them from all of this propaganda that's been spread across social media networks by marketing firms like Chaotic Good? Now, yeah, look, I'm not a big Geese fan particularly, but I do think that they're a very good band doing something interesting, and I don't think that all of this marketing would have worked quite so well were they not that already. Where am I going with this? I guess that's the other side of the coin, but I do think there is a lot of power in how these viral moments work. I mean, it's social proof, right? You see 30 videos of people saying, this fucking rocks, and it's a segment of a Geese song that does kind of rock. Maybe you think it rocks a little more than it actually does as a result of that. And maybe you go talking and about that band to your friends, and the word of mouth expands. That's how marketing works. It's just, I think that the way that, these tools that we have now, the TikToks and the Instagrams, they kind of do really wedge right into your brain a little more hardcore than billboards or TV ads did. And I think it's because that there's that blurred line of reality. You're seeing some person in their house dancing to a song. It's like, well, that's real. That's a person. And they're just dancing in front of a camera. They're in their house. That's as real as it gets. This is reality. They like the song, and they were so compelled. They liked the song so much, they were compelled to dance in front of their camera about it. My thoughts on the matter are, as always, who cares? Hey, do you ever listen to Evil 9? Can't say I ever really did. I've certainly been aware of Evil 9 for a long time. They're a Breaks production duo. I think they sort of first came into the public eye in early 2000-ish. I've been listening to their record quite a bit lately, and it's one of those records that I'd always seen on the shelf when I was a kid and never actually listened to. The album is called You Can Be Special Too, and I just want to take a quick break here, a little respite to play my favourite track off the record, the closing track, Hired Goons. I certainly heard this song out a number of times over the years and didn't know that it was Evil 9. This song absolutely kills. It's got this quality to it of sort of, it drives, and something that Evil 9 do amazingly are their drums. The drums are so, they're just, I love that era of chunky, crispy, crunchy breaks, drums, beautiful work of sampling, just the choicest selection of kicks and snares, just beautiful sounding drums. So I can't put words to it, because any word you use to describe the drum production on this record it just makes it sound lame, like chunky, and it's so lame. But anyway, the track Hired Goons by Evil 9 employs, of course, that, because that's what they do best. But it also has this sort of like pensive feel to it, where it never really feels like it's getting anywhere. And I really like that. Every time I've heard it out in a club or in a field or wherever it may be, I've always really loved sort of this pensive sort of chord sample or chord stab that comes out over the top of the bass line and just kind of floats in the air for a moment, and it's not dissonant, but it's sort of, it's a pensive chord that drags you on, or pulls you through to the next time it hits, and it always feels like you're waiting for some kind of resolution that never comes. I love that about this track. Hired Goons by Evil 9, absolutely slamming. Let's have a listen. simply must hear it to believe it. Over the weekend, I watched a film I hadn't seen in a long time. Have you ever heard of the film The Commitments? I don't know. I don't know if that's if The Commitments is a film many people are aware of, or it's just for some reason I'm aware of it. My dad put this film on for me and my brother when we were young. I think it's from around about 91. So in my mind, everyone knows The Commitments. Of course, it was a well, you know, yeah, everyone's seen it. It was, remember when we were kids and we all watched The Commitments? That's my view of the film, but I don't know about that. It might not be that well known a film. What is the conceit of The Commitments? Well, it's about a guy called Jimmy, and Jimmy, we open on Jimmy sort of walking around early 90s Dublin in Ireland. And we're hearing his monologue about how he's always been in the music business and he's always wanted to be in the music business. And we soon find that his goal, against the backdrop of a impoverished is maybe too strong a word, but certainly not a down on its luck Ireland, Dublin, you know, kids playing out in the streets and lighting fires for fun, and I don't know what the living standards were like in Dublin in 1991, but I know they certainly had been through some very tough times just prior to that. And the film paints a town that's, you know, not particularly affluent, and these characters are not either, and they're just trying to, you know, they're working class and they're trying to get work and trying to get paid, and it's rough. Anyway, Jimmy decides he's going to be the manager for a band, so he pulls together a ragtag group of Irish what would you call them, scallywags, to put together a soul band. Would you believe it? And they call themselves The Commitments. He gets, you know, he pulls in 3 female backing singers. He pulls in a saxophone player. He gets a drummer. He pulls his friends out of their wedding band, guitarist and bassist. And lo and behold, at that same wedding that he pulls his friends out of, there's an absolute menace to society, drunk, wobbling around, but singing, and he's got pipes of gold. Anyway, it's kind of like Sister Act, where a bunch of ragtag people get together and put together a choir, and god damn it, they can sing. Or like the Mighty Ducks, a ragtag group of kids get together, and god damn it, they can play hockey. Or what else is there? Singing in the Rain, maybe not so much Singing in the Rain. You get the idea. Let's just fucking put together a bunch of randos and see if we can make this thing work, and god damn it, they can. So it's like a 2-hour-long movie, and my memory of it was that it was sick, but I guess it's not a very good film. The first act is them, you know, he puts an ad in the newspaper and he takes auditions and he tries to get all these people together. And he eventually gets the band together. That's Act 1. Act 2 is a lot of them, I guess, just kind of like practicing. It's like an act long. It's like an act long montage of them learning their instruments or learning to be in a band together. And oh, isn't it hard? I've got to look after the 3 babies, and I can't get to band practice, and blah blah blah. And Jimmy's cracking the whip. Come on, guys, you gotta show up to band practice, etc., etc. So it goes for a very long time. I think they could have cut some shit out of that second act because nothing really happens. But basically what does happen is the band kind of playing soul covers around Ireland slowly starts to build up a bit of a reputation. You know, they start to have a little bit of local fame and notoriety, and they get noticed in the streets. Oh yeah, we saw you at the social. When you're playing next, and they're all sort of feeling a bit good about it. And then, of course, relationships start up between band members, and relationships fall apart between band members. But boy, can this band play! And Jimmy knows it, and he's trying to keep them together. The film climaxes with their biggest performance yet, and the audience are loving it. And you get a fantastic rendition of, you have songs like Mustang Sally, and boy, do the band perform that well. Yes, they do. I was talking to my brother about this. The film the performances in the film, you know, the parts where they're on stage and they play full songs, they're actually really well done, in the sense that you often see films that revolve around, you know, ostensibly live bands performing live on stage, and you know, 8 times out of 10 when you see that in a film, it always feels really badly overdubbed. The voice of the singer doesn't quite match up with the voice of the actor playing the singer. The guitarists don't look like they've got the right fingering positions. It feels really badly mixed in a sense that, like, the suspension of disbelief disappears as soon as a musical number comes in. This film does that incredibly well. I don't know, I haven't looked into it, whether all of the actors are also players, are also singers, are also on the actual recordings for each number in this film. And there are a lot of numbers, you know, like, I guess, like, that's one thing that the film does well, is that, like, the band gets up on stage and then you'll have a full 3-minute soul song from start to finish, which is engagingly performed and filmed. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if the actors are the people that are playing the instruments or whatever, but that part of the film is done incredibly convincingly, and to that I tip my hat. Anyway, they go on. Spoiler alert: if you want to watch The Commitments, you should maybe skip ahead about 2 minutes, because I'm about to tell you how it ends. The band go on stage. They absolutely kill it. They come off stage and they're instantly bashing each other up in the green room. They're all fighting about this, that, and the other. And then, of course, they have to go back out for an encore, so they pull themselves together, they go out and they do an encore, and they perform the Joe Cocker version of Try a Little Tenderness. And it's electric, I gotta tell you. What a performance. The vocalist is amazing. And they come off stage again, and they fall to pieces. They start fighting, bashing each other up. They're falling out into the alleyway out next to the club that they were performing at. Jimmy, the manager, has managed to get a bunch of A&R reps from record labels to come down and check his band out. Now, there is a hole in a plot hole here, in that the band only play covers of soul classics. So I don't know what a record label is doing. You know, I don't know what a record label thinks the value is in coming down and checking out this band that has buzz. They don't have any original songs. I don't know what do I know, bro? I never made it in the music industry. Maybe Jimmy knows something I don't. But anyway, the label people are there. They're checking them out. And of course, the label people see the disintegration of the band before their very eyes, fighting in the backstage area. The fight falls out onto the street. What's going on? We can't sign a band like this. And Jimmy, after this whole film from the start, you know, trying to build this band up and, you know, make it in the music industry, he says, feck it. And he quits. And that's how the film ends. It's kind of cool that it all falls apart and that's it. I guess not many films end like that. And then, of course, we get the rundown of where are they now? What's the singer doing? Well, she went back to her job in the cafe and she's happy. And what happened to this guy? Well, he got a record contract, but he's still as much of a fuckwit as he was before. Anyway, Commitments. Look it up. I reckon if you've got... Okay, I'll put it like this. I have very, very little time. I'm amazed that I've been sitting here recording a podcast for 47 minutes. That's insane. So maybe I have more time than I think. Anyway, I have very little time. But I still managed to, on the whim of remembering something from my childhood, watch the film The Commitments. I dare say a number of you listening to this have a lot more time than I do to spare. So, hey, why not fucking throw 2 hours of it down the drain and pop on The Commitments this weekend? It gets my bona fide 2 thumbs up. The Commitments. Hey, let's talk about another song. You know Cake, the band Cake? You might know Cake from their huge hit, Long Skirt, Short Jacket. Wait, is that right? Short Skirt, Long Jacket. Cake are a really interesting band, a band that I absolutely treasure and love. Why? I always love a slice of cake. Let's put it that way. Their first album is really good, and I'm going to make videos about Cake eventually, so I won't go too much into it, but hey, let's listen to... so it's a self-produced, self-recorded first album. It was recorded by the band outside of record contract. Not, they didn't have financing provided by a label. They weren't asked to work with a certain producer, etc., etc. And that's a big part of what their sound was on the first record, because they were given their own tools, or they found their own tools to record and produce the record, and then went on to be, after they reached notoriety, because it was clear they had a proven track record, that actually a big part of what's interesting about this band is their sound and the specific way that they are recorded and the sonic palette that they employ. Now, that first record is fantastic. It's called Motorcade of Generosity, and I just want to play... Look, the chord progression in this song has been played out to death. There's so many songs that follow the exact same chord progression, but I really like it. I think some of the production tweaks on this. It's Jolene by Cake. It's certainly one of the most accessible and maybe least interesting songs on the record, but instantly poppy and catchy and fun, which is why I've chosen it today. Have a listen to Jolene by Cake if you haven't heard it, and check out Motorcade of Generosity. It's a really good record. I love Cake. Okay. Yeah, that band, man. They're very interesting to me. Okay, that's all I've got time for. Thanks for joining me on my podcast. I will talk to some guests in the future, and I will talk solo again like this in the future as well. Bear with me. And also bear with the delusions of grandeur about my, videos about Radio Free Alice and Chaotic Good. Sort of view them as a springboard for me to talk about what I think about these things, and as entertainment, because I'm putting this out publicly because I think people are somewhat interested in it. And I don't know. You ever listen to a podcast like pure, like full-on narcissist style, and just like the whole time listen to the person talking and go, fuck, you're such a fucking idiot. Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. Oh my God, I can't believe you think that way. Maybe there's a bunch of people out there doing that right now to this episode of my podcast. I welcome it. I mean, like, I'm glad to be some form of entertainment, because as I established earlier, I just want people to listen to me and look at me and like me. Wait, no, the like me part, I don't mind so much. Either way, right? Just look at me. Pay attention to me. All right, I'll talk to you next time. Much love. Goodbye.